David, you started it? Okay. The first order of business is a motion to accept the agenda.
I so move to accept the agenda for this evening.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, it's accepted by acclamation. Justin, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we've got a few people jumping in a little bit late. That's fine. Principals, assistant principals are still busy with after school stuff, and there's still some kids and programs on campus. It's a good thing, but schools don't always shut down when the bell rings at the end of the day. So, hey, before I kick it off, just a little bit of background. We had talked about the importance of data in our system and transparency and providing the board with updates. And so one of the things that we talked about is having our principals update us a couple times a year. We were going to have this meeting a month or two ago. We had some inclement weather. So thank you for the flexibility. But having this meeting and a mid-year report is aligned with our efforts to be more transparent and be aligned. But I'll say this as a caveat with data. I've looked at a lot of data in my education career. I've been a part of data teams and data dialogues, district, school, department, and the folks that are truly effective with data use it to drive instruction, right? We're going to see a lot of numbers. We'll try to give you, just a little bit of clarity on the acronyms, but it only is effective if it gets to the student level. And so when we talk about data, and if we're going to have an MTS system and we're going to get kids ready for Algebra 1 and third grade reading, and they're going to graduate on time, and they're going to be ready for college and career in the military, and they're going to go over to SWAC and take college courses, and they're going to go to Oregon State, or they're going to go to Columbia, whatever it is, their path, it's critical that we have data in real time so we can make decisions for kids. And one of the challenges with the state assessment is that sometimes we get those results too late. Doesn't mean they're not informative. They are informative. They still give us good information, but it's really our diagnostic assessments, our benchmark assessments, our formative that can help us drive results. And I'll just give you one example. Eli and Floyd are going to talk about passing rates and F rates. That is formative data that we feel like we can do something about within the moment, right? Because graduating on time, passing classes is really important. Our DIBELS data that our elementary folks use, that's formative data because now they can drive instruction. I'm just giving you the practical ways we're going to use it. They can drive instruction and they can provide interventions and they can provide acceleration. They can provide enrichment for kids in the moment. If you don't have data, you can't do that. We're just all kind of guessing. And so it's important that if we're going to look at it, if we're going to talk about it, then it has to get to the student level, or we're just talking about data. And the last thing I'll say before I get into some housekeeping, and I'll turn it over. We're going to start backwards. We always start with elementary folks. We're going to start with high school today. We'll start with Eli and then just kind of work down. Proficiency, some of you were a part of the conversation early before we started. We really want to make sure we're celebrating growth. We have kiddos who come into our school. We're not responsible for the gap initially. And I'm not trying to blame parents, but we have a lot of our kids, folks, come to us really, really low. And so there's a huge gap that happens. Now we're responsible when they come to us. We're responsible for closing it. But we didn't create the gap. But I was just at Madison and we were talking about celebrating wins. And when you have a kiddo who comes to you and they're in the 15th percentile in reading and you get him to the 35th or the 40th percentile, you're moving mountains. Like, we have to celebrate that. Now, that's not going to get us a gold star. The state might not recognize it, but we internally need to recognize that kind of work. Now, doesn't mean we're complacent. We want to get him to grade level, but early on, there's a lot of good things that are happening in terms of student learning. But as Member Giel says, there's still lots of red, and we got to grow the green and we got to shrink the red. So before I turn it over, housekeeping, 10 minutes for presentation, and then we have 5 minutes for Q&A. So for each person, a total of 15. If we don't go 15, it's not the end of the world. Let's really prioritize the academic data. If we don't get to attendance and behavior, we can get to that later. David is going to be he's going to be at the table running the scoreboard and the shot clock. He's going to give you a hand at 5, and he's going to give you another hand at 1 at 9 minutes, 1 minute left. And then board members, if you could just raise your hand, and David and I will call on you. David?
There's going to be data on the screen, correct? Okay, so I may turn my video off so I can hold the screen close to me so I can see it.
Yeah, David's gonna give everybody the ability to show their screen.
Okay, perfect.
All right, any questions before we kick it off? Eli, are you ready?
Well, let's try. I'll see if I can share.
Okay.
Hopefully. Does that work?
Perfect.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
So here's our mid-year data review. All right. So first off, I just want to give everybody kind of a glimpse of what we provide staff so that they have the data in front of them by week. So our attendance secretaries create these flyers every Friday that I then submit into our weekly newsletter. They go out Monday with our F-rate sprint goal, which our goal is less than 10% for each grade level and each core class, and then above 90% for our daily attendance. And so you'll see each day of the week for each grade level, as well as the overall weekly for that group. All right, so first round of academic data. So this is our semester 1 F data. It's disaggregated by grade level. So you can see, again, our goal is 10%. All but sophomores met that goal. This sophomore class, even as freshmen, has struggled tremendously with academics, specifically with the core classes. We know that. Missy Cooper, our graduation coach, has been working closely with them, as well as our counselors, to kind of continue to improve and get them in credit recovery classes. We had a great turnout for summer school with a lot of those students, and so they were able to recover a lot of credits this last summer coming in out of their freshman year. But even now, they still continue to struggle, and so we're working with that group. Freshman class did phenomenal. Saw our juniors, but seniors were really excited with only 5% of our seniors receiving an F. So great thing to see. And I'll talk a little bit more about the senior class a little bit later, but good data from overall from our other grades. Let's see. All right, so F rate by subject. Kind of not surprising that our core classes are the ones that are failed the most. With social science and science, being at 13, 14, not ideal. We've had those meetings with those departments to see what we can do to support them in regards to interventions and systems that can get kids in the classrooms, get the intervention they need to get better, get support on assessments, projects, things like that. But good to see that, again, electives, CTE, fine arts students are doing very well. Low F rates. Most kids are continuing with those because, like they said, those are the ones they enjoy. Those are the ones they selected. So just continue to work on the core classes is our big project. So this is something I am excited about. And when you talk about our current seniors in comparison to previous years, so of the 62 Fs that were assigned to seniors first semester, only 13 were in core classes that were required for graduation, which is great. So that means there's only going to be 13 courses that need to be recovered. And those were by 6 students. So we're looking at 6 seniors that are what we consider to be really credit deficient in regards to being on track to graduate. But, we're talking about six seniors and 13 classes, not a huge hill to overcome. 12 of our seniors received an incomplete, which means that they were close to being proficient, but just need a little extra time. And so we had some teachers issue I's, which majority of those, I think there's only 3 that are left that need to be recovered. for those students to get a passing grade for their first semester class. And currently right now, we only have 18 seniors taking 37 credit recovery courses, which in a class of 170 plus kids is phenomenal. We've had years that we were just chasing down the stretch to get to the finish line. This is the first year that I feel confident that that's not going to be the case and that we are right where we need to be to get these guys across the finish line. So really exciting data from our seniors. All right, our pre-ACT results. So the first thing is a glow. 59% of our students are on target in English, which I think when we talk about just, you look at state assessments, you look at data that we've received from SWOC. One of the data points that we got from SWOC talked about their foundational writing and foundational math. This isn't part of this, but 77% of our students who go on to SWOC have either complete foundational writing prior to attending SWOC or by the end of their first year. So phenomenal data to see that 77% of our kids. So kind of goes in line with that. And then math, kind of again, a grower for us is that 76% of our kids need help in science, as well as, we're still struggling a little bit with our reading comprehension in some areas, but overall English is a good topic. Math is, again, a struggle for us, where when we looked at foundational math at SWOC, only 14% of our kids were completing a foundational math, which means basically math 104 or 105. Most of our students are needing to do either math 90 or math 98 that first year, just so they can build up their skills. One caveat too that we want to talk about was the administration of the pre-ACT. We did struggle because it was a little inconsistent. Some teachers did a phenomenal job, some struggled a little bit. And so just needed to spending some time to review those expectations with our staff next year, and kind of spending some time in the administration is going to be key to being consistent across the board. Again, so some AT results, reading scores. Again, so ACT, we had 50, I believe it was 53 kids that took the ACT. So this was junior seniors. So the mean reading score was 22.5. Composite overall was 20.6. English proficiency 20.9. Even math was 19, which was lowest. But when we did the presentation before the break, 19 is kind of that cut score. That's that number you're kind of shooting for overall. And so majority of our kids found themselves either in that category above. So that was a good thing to see. AP enrollment. So over the course of the last 5 years, you can see, when we started out with 2 AP courses. One was back in the day was U.S. history and psychology were our 2 big ones. Then we added AP biology, but it was an alternating course. We had 1 year where we didn't have AP psychology because the instructor retired, and then we're trying to find a new instructor. But as you can see, over the course of 5 years, we went from 2 AP courses to 5. AP World, this is the first year we offered it, and you can see it's our highest, that's a sophomore class. We have we have 65 kids that are currently in that class. There's 2 sections of it. So good involvement with our sophomores in their first year taking AP courses. AP test participation. So previous years, students paid for their tests, so it was kind of up to them if they wanted to. Just because they took the course doesn't mean they had to take the AP test. I would say it's probably, it ranged anywhere depending on the course from about 50% participation to 75%, but it was rarely ever 100% of the students that were taking the course took the assessment. This year, we're going to see all of our students take the state test or the AP test in all the courses. So good numbers. You can see as, over the course of time, it's bounced back and forth. Again, that's partly because we didn't offer the course that year for them to take it. So that was partly why we see that jumping up and down. Graduation rates. So this is our 8-year trend. Obviously, prior to COVID, we were hovering around the 90, 91, 92%. We took a big drop down to 82. We slowly kind of started to climb back up these last couple of years, but we took a major drop this year down to 69. Still kind of talking a little bit about what is the cause for that. We have some ideas, but we kind of want to get all that data before we decide to make exactly what it is that's causing that. Okay, so attendance. So again, this is kind of what we see when we talk about daily attendance and weekly attendance. This is kind of just a snapshot of what March has looked like for us. We've had some really good weeks. I don't know what it is about Wednesdays, but Wednesdays, if you can see, we have 92. We even had a 97 for our junior class one way. So Wednesdays are highly, really good attendance day. Fridays are horrible. You look at Fridays, some of them are 75, hovering around below 80. So we really struggle with attendance on Fridays, but middle of the week, kids are showing up and are getting good stuff on those days. This is our kind of our average daily attendance for the first semester. Freshmen, phenomenal. They're really getting close to that 90%. They have been all year. They've had some phenomenal days. And then, our seniors are the ones that we struggle to get to school. But for the most part, they're above that 87% overall. So good attendance, but again, trying to push them to get to that 90. And then overall, we're about, anywhere from 88 to 89 on average. So this is our regular attenders. So, when we talk about daily attendance, that 90% is just there's 90% of the kids on the campus. Our goal is that we want all of our kids to be 90% over the course of the entire year, which theoretically means they'll miss 16 days out of the year. So those regular attendants are kids that are 90% and above. And then chronically absent is the 80 to 89, and then 79% and below is the severely chronically absent. So if you look at 22, we were about 50 to 40% on average for regular attenders, and now we're in the 60s. So we've shown a lot of growth over the last couple of years of getting kids here 90% or more. And we've really strived to work on the severely chronically absent and getting those kids moving up to the next category. Discipline data, shocker, freshmen, 50% of our discipline come from our freshmen. And then it steadily declines as you go through the years. Seniors with, the fewest amount. Gender, again, mostly males. 61% of our referrals go to males, 38% to females. Top infractions are going to be skipping, which is great. I mean, you think, oh, skipping's up, but it's nice to see that it's not some of these major things like we possibly see in the past with, like, we're not seeing a lot of issues with fights as much as we used to see. Any issues with vaping? Vaping's gone down, drugs, things like that. So, skipping, something we can work on with kids.
And that's time.
That's time.
That's
All right.
time, sir.
So just the last thing, I think this is a good one to see too. When you talk about discipline, it's equal across the board. So, you look at Hispanic students, 70% of our student body, 13% are receiving referrals. 2 or more races, 10 and 10. White, 69% of our student body, 71% of our referrals. So the distribution of referrals based on ethnicity is pretty equitable across the board. So, all right.
All right. Questions for Principal Ashton? Member Brick.
Hi, I love the attendance, acknowledgement. I really enjoyed that in the beginning. And so did you say if that goes out on the morning, messages, or is it in a newsletter? How do we celebrate them?
So we do, yeah. So we celebrate. So one of the great things that Greg's done this year is Greg celebrates daily attendance, weekly attendance, and monthly attendance. And he does that first thing in the morning, and he gives out gift cards, free bowling, free ice cream. I mean, you name it. Like, he's doing everything he can to celebrate kids and kids for being on campus. So we celebrate those with the staff weekly, and then we celebrate them monthly at our class meetings. But like I said, Greg's doing it every day.
Phenomenal. Thank you. I love that. Good job.
Member Giels.
Yeah, Eli, I just wonder if you could maybe speak to the math and science aspect. I mean, are you guys looking at an approach to kind of try to figure out how to make that move? I mean, the fact that many of our students are still sort of in remedial math, not prepared for college level math at some point, is pretty distressing to me.
It is. So it's something that we've talked about with the math department already. We have another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks and looking at our pathways and adjusting that to better prepare them for Math 104, 105. And when we meet with SWOC on April 18th, that's going to be a major discussion point about how can we get them ready for essentially that Math 104 and 105. What do we need to do to help build the skills so that they can be more readily successful, rather than just saying, okay, hey, we're just trying to get you through the system so that you get your 3 credits of math. Like, we want to get them ready for those specific courses.
Member Hutchinson.
Or do you think we're
sorry?
Go to Arnie first.
Wait, Member Giels, do you have a follow-up?
I was just going to ask, just Eli, if you had the thought that are we losing students in the math area, or are they just never getting there in the first place? Is there a point at which things are dropping off, or are we just never getting to that place where we we get them to a point where they're sort of on track with math?
Well, over the course, I can tell you one. So we broke down Algebra 1 into Algebra 1A and 1B over the course of a couple of last years. And the thought of that was to give students an opportunity to spend more time at the Algebra 1 level to hopefully build their skills and then continue on. We have not seen the return on investment with that we would like to have, and said that we need to go back to the drawing board with that. I think a lot of that was a byproduct of COVID, and some of the gaps that were there with the hope of filling those in. But now it's just kind of perpetuated it, and we need to make that adjustment so we can better prepare the kids.
So if I go next, I would say, how many of your seniors are not taking math?
A lot more. I mean, well, all of our seniors should be taking math.
Right.
And we try to encourage them to do that. But I think our counselors and advisory teachers have done a good job of telling kids or informing kids of what their graduation requirements are, and they're knowledgeable of that. And so, if we give them the path of least resistance, a lot of kids will take that, right? Like,
Yep.
I mean, I don't blame them. I probably would have done the same thing when I was in high school. So I think it's just, kind of giving them the purpose behind why they need to take certain math courses for that post-high school plan and connect that to that. So yeah, unfortunately, we see too many kids not taking math as seniors.
And along that same line, there was a 1-year trial that we tried where we gave SWOC's entrance exam to all of our juniors and gave them an idea of where they were going to be placed when they got to SWOC. It was good for a number of them because they realized they weren't ready yet, but we didn't follow up with it. So I don't know what that would do, or if there's an opportunity to help them understand where they are with respect to going on to community college.
And that's what the pre-ACT is going to do for us.
Okay.
I mean, so now having the pre-ACT 8, 9, 10, and then having the ACT, we'll have a diagnostic tool to kind of help guide us on what we can help students improve on and where they need to go. And it gives them a good sense, and during our presentation on Friday, the presenter talked about how it gives them a real good idea of where they're going to do, not only in college, but if it's like they're partnered with the electrical apprenticeship program, it tells you it's a precursor for ASVAB. Gives you a good idea of how you're going to perform on the ASVAB. I mean, so there's a lot of tools that we can use for that to show the students, hey, this is how well you're going to do, and it's not just college.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Addie, member Hutchison, can we go ahead?
Mine's a really quick question. What is AP World?
It's basically world history.
Advanced placement.
Yeah. No, I just didn't know if so many kids were taking it. It sounded great.
This is a highly motivated. It's a top heavy, bottom heavy sophomore class. So we got some very group of kids that are really motivated and some kids that need a lot of support and interventions.
All right. Well, thank you, Principal Ashton. Great job. Thank you, board members. Really good questions. We're going to stick to our timeline, and we are going to move to Principal Montiel.
No, Kayla Crook.
Oh, Kayla. Yep. Kayla. Okay, Kayla's with us now. All right.
Hello, everybody. Okay, you see my screen? You see it, guys?
Yep, we got it.
Okay, awesome. So today we're just presenting about destinations. And first off, there's one of my graduates from this year, so that's always fun to see. We do confetti cannons when students graduate, and it's a whole lot of fun. Our enrollment right now is at 51 students. We have 3 9th graders, 13 10th graders, 18 11th, and 17 12th graders. And they're all doing pretty well. We're in that last little bit of pushing these 12th graders to graduate on time. So lots of work there. As you can see, the demographics, this Alaska Native American is actually a lot higher. It's actually around 30-ish%, but because of the multiracial numbers here, some of the families fall into that category as well. And so we have about 33% of our students receiving services through a 504 and IEP. We have 8 students in TAG or identified as TAG. And so we have a pretty diverse population actually at Destinations, which makes for some really great learning opportunities and things that I'll talk about later about some opportunities they have for service and learning about Native cultures and things like that. So what I'm going to go through today is really what things have looked like for Destinations over the this year, of course, but really the improvements that have been being made here. We are in our 3rd year of focusing on implementing some major changes with Destinations, and where that came from was a root cause analysis where we talked about why our graduation rates were low, and that was about 3 years ago. And so we created, kind of at the time, a goal that we were like, hey, it's ambitious, but we're going to get there, right? And so, by 25-26 school year, we wanted 80% of our students to graduate on time with a four-year graduation. And so in order to do that, to make the changes at Alternative Ed, we really needed to look at those inclusive social emotional interventions. We needed to make some changes around our culture to create a more positive and welcoming environment for our students, and then look at our attendance and how do we support increasing our attendance rates, and then finally, what do we need to do to improve credit attainment for these students that come to us? And so those are the things that we have been working on over the past 3 years. This is I think 8-year graduation rate, historical graduation rate data sheet here. When we first started, our graduation rate was at 29%. When we started these initiatives. As you can see, the graduation rate here on the blue is Destinations graduation rate over the course of the 8 years. Above is the district graduation rate. As you can see, it's been far below for many years. So in 2022-23, it rose from 29% to 52%. And super, super exciting for us this year. Our graduates last year, we had 79% graduation rate, which, hey, we said it was super ambitious to get to 80. We were almost there. So super excited about that and the progress that has been made towards graduation at Destinations. So some of our interventions, one of our interventions that we've been running to increase our credit attainment is what we call individualized student success plans. And these success plans, we started with a pilot with about 4 to 6 students. And over the next couple months, we will be piloting with all of the students. So each kid will have their own individualized plan and their own individualized mentor that's helping them through their plan so that they can graduate on time. This is our credit attainment for this school year for quarter 1 and quarter 2. Destinations runs off of quarters because what we found in the first year was, 18 weeks was a long time for some of our kids. Shortening the amount of time for them to achieve, was really important. So these are the credits that we've had. We had 119 credits in quarter 2, and we had 86.62 credits earned across the school for quarter 1. The F rate is pretty low, but it's because we do IPs and the kids have until they figure it out. And so there's some Fs from doing some direct instruction classes, but for the most part, the kids then can also replace those grades. Our ACT or pre-ACT scores, our 9th graders and 10th graders did these this year. This is about three 9th graders and 7 or 8 10th graders that took these. Our average is around a 15, so a lot of improvement needs to be made to get these kids college ready. And we know we understand that. Another intervention that we've been doing is personalized attendance calls for our Tier 3 students. And these calls are really based around, hey, we really miss you. We really want to see your face. Please come back to school. And what can we do to help? So offering the support, being really positive. We're never calling a family and saying, why aren't you here? You're supposed to be at school. It is always positively framed. And so since December 6th, when we started the sprint goals, this is what we're looking at. We started, these are the average attendance, and attendance is an issue, obviously, but we are seeing some growth with our 9th and 11th grade, for sure. These are the percentages that they've raised. 12th grade, I'm actually very surprised that there is a 4% raise in their attendance since we started. 10th grade, 10th grade is hard. So we're working on it. There's some things that we are trying out with that 10th grade class beyond just personalized phone calls, some incentives and things. Other things, so I talked about service. Our kids are really involved in things like watershed. This middle picture here, they've removed 500 feet of landscape fabric from the Millicoma Marsh Trail. They've taken out the invasive species at the Coos History Museum. Our kids volunteered at Madison for gingerbread house making. Our Native students created 250 cultural kits for K-12 students. This over here, Cody's our first destination student representative for the board, and they're just learning a lot, and they really love this hands-on project seminar that they do on Fridays. It's a really great class, a way for them to get away from the computer. Discipline, we handle things very differently with discipline at destinations. Referrals aren't really written. We just talk with the students and figure it out. The ones that do get written are the ones that, are serious, and we need to go the route of suspension. And so, as you can see, our suspension rate's pretty low at this point in time. And that is what I have. What questions do you have?
All right,
Arnie?
Member Roblin.
Not a question. I'm sitting on the South SLU board, and they are very excited about the kids that come out from destinations to South SLU. So thank you from another group.
Member Hutchison. Addie, we can't hear you.
No question now. I have a question at the end.
Okay, Member Brick.
Hi, my question was going back to the 12th grade graduation for this year. What did you say that your percentage is for this year of those seniors graduating on time?
For this year or the previous year?
No, this year. Like I know that you probably don't have final numbers yet, as it's like almost April, but do you have any projections?
At this point in time, every student has been provided everything they need to graduate on time. Awesome. For those 17 kids. It's really about motivation and keeping them motivated and getting there, And
those SSPs will definitely help.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Member Giels.
Yeah, thank you. Kayla, I'm kind of interested if, you guys are doing some things that are, I think, innovative and maybe outside of what the other schools are doing. I just kind of curious if there's been discussions about some of these things being used in some of the other schools. I'm kind of interested in, how you guys handle behaviors and you don't have many referrals and you take a more individualized approach. And I just wonder if some of those lessons wouldn't be well used in some of our other schools as well.
Thanks, David. I have the luxury of having 51 students. And so, and the other schools do not have that luxury of having that small of a group of kids. And so, the way that my staff speaks to students is agreed upon by my very small staff. And, that's a big part of it. when you have a large staff, everybody has their own idea about how things need to go. And for destinations, it's, these are the expectations. If we're not meeting those expectations, then we need to revisit and we need to have a conversation. So, but I have that luxury to be able to, be in every classroom every day. And that's not the luxury at a comprehensive high school or in any of the other schools, in all honesty. So, but I mean, I'm speaking with staff all the time in my other role too, different innovative kind of things to think through. The other thing that we are doing is we kind of started piloting some interventions and things that then have gone into like the special education classrooms or to like other interventions in the district, like the reading interventions at the 7-12. We piloted it last year to see how it will work with high school students. And so those are some of the things that we're working on.
Hutchinson.
Yeah, David asked that question, and that's sort of what I was going to ask. I mean, as I took notes on here, this individualized student success plan, what would it take for us to implement that at the high school? So at least teachers coming in would be able to look at background, and assist in some way, not to the same degree because we wouldn't have that staff, but that just sounds like a basic thing we could do.
And I would say that the high school probably does something similar to that through their advisory and like getting to know the kids and that kind of thing. And so the goal setting with students and things like that. And so it's very similar to.
But you spend more time with them. You get to know the kids, don't you, as you're developing this?
And our high school staff gets to know their students as well. And so yeah. I don't want to take that away from them at all. I just have 51 students and a small space to work with them. And so it's really hard to compare what we're doing to any other school in the district. So
unless we were able to increase staff in some way to make that, if we thought that was important enough that, yes.
And we just got finished doing our pilot cycle, and I haven't assessed all the data for our SSP plans. And so until that's even done, it worked for some kids, it didn't work for others. And there's just a lot of data crunching that still needs to be done to even see if it's something that would be beneficial to spread to others. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Member Brick.
Sorry, just one quick question. I think that the graduation is changed this. It's like early, like May 31st. Is that correct, Kayla?
It's May 30th.
May 30th. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then do you guys already have speakers for graduation? My godson is graduating. So
we haven't discussed that yet. We're like we're almost to the whole planning stage, Kim.
Okay.
We were kind of waiting till after spring break. So
awesome. Yep, I get you. Well, hopefully he's graduating. I need to check in. So, all right. Thanks, Kayla.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you, Kayla. Again, great questions from our Board of Trustees. I just want to, not a question, but I want to highlight one of the things that I'm really proud of, and this predates me, is the alternative education program in Coos Bay. Alt Ed used to be about credit recovery. It was really credit triage more than anything. We have kids at destinations. They're fine with credits. They want to be there because it's a smaller learning environment. It meets their needs. Some of them want to work. Some of them have other commitments. And so that they are not just because of credit recovery. And just a testament to Kayla, her staff, and then also Eli and the admin at the high school. They work really well with our alternative systems. Okay, Principal Montiel.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Let's jump right into this. We're going to get going with some math here. So for the first time in the 5 years that we've been at junior high, we finally have a curriculum with the Savvis curriculum that has a diagnostic test. We've struggled for a while to have some consistency with data, to get some data points, and we now have something that is going to be used to better measure our growth and our gains with our students, and also measuring our teaching as well, right? So this is good. This is good. And because it's new, we're still learning about it quite a bit. And you're going to hear me say that. I think the research shows that it takes about 2 to 4 years for a teacher to understand the new curriculum, and up to 6 years to fully feel that they have mastery over that stuff. So we're going to start off with the 7th grade. Our beginning of the year, the boy, and the MOY is the middle of the year. So we gave a diagnostic test to our 7th graders and 8th graders at the beginning of the year. You can see here on the chart that we have a lot of red. To start the year. And as Eli mentioned, you can look at all kinds of factors as to things that could have led into this. But we're not going to dive into that as well. And then you can see the growth that we had at the middle of the year. And again, you can focus on the stuff that say, oh gosh, well, this still only 1.1% exceeds. But you can also notice what I see the most is that the red shrunk dramatically. So we went from a 55% down to 38%, with 28% approaching a lot more green. This is our 7th grade. Our 8th grade level, a lot more red. But then you have some shrink as well there, with 72% not meeting. And then we got down to about 40% with our green also increasing in this area. You can see our numbers, our testing population changes too, for all kinds of reasons. We did have some students move away at the semester, but also just some students that didn't finish because we had a window to get this done. So our numbers are a little bit off there. So one of the things with the new program, as I mentioned, Savvis we do a screening test to see what the initial placement for the students, where they're going to be placed to start the year. And they have a choice as to whether they get to pick whether they're going to take the on grade or the below grade. After doing this for the first time, our math department decided that they're not going to give them that choice next year, and they're just going to give everybody the on grade. So we have more consistency with our data there. So you can see here, those that chose on grade scored better than those that chose below grade. And you can kind of maybe have guessed that would be the case. The positive here, this was the beginning of the year. At the middle of the year stuff, we are all in the orange, and we're approaching, and we're getting closer to this little green over here as a total. So overall, our numbers go down, but when you combine the two, this is where we're at the middle of the year. This is at the 8th grade level. 7th grade level, same idea. 1581, really, really close as a 7th grade to meeting, and much closer as well. And you're going to notice as we go through a lot of this data that currently our 7th grade is performing higher in math and some of the other areas as well. Part of the Savvis curriculum is that it also has a leveled assessment or a leveled program that students are encouraged. We have a school-wide goal of 60 minutes, and you'll hear the elementary principals talk about the same thing. We expect our students to spend 20 minutes doing Success Maker in their math classes, 20 minutes in their advisories, and then we have an expectation that they're doing 20 minutes at home. It's been a little bit of a struggle this year, and you can see in October, as we're learning how this works, we were low, but we made gains along the way. And again, you can see our 7th grade has been doing a little bit better with it than 8th grade. And I think a lot of it is the novelty of the new curriculum for those 8th graders that were used to what the big ideas last year, and then coming in to a new program. And basically the way this works is that it's AI, and it is you're doing your work. And once you start having more success, it becomes getting a little bit more difficult. If you're not making any gains, then it keeps you at that level or takes you back down. So it's reading the level of the students. And it's a really great program. I've looked over a lot of student shoulders, and I think when they focus in and can get after it, it's making gains. And the research shows again that the more minutes that you spend on this program, the learning and the growing is going to come with it. Okay, we also, so we added this diagnostic with our Savvas curriculum, but for the first time, we also implemented the pre-ACT at the 8th grade and the 9th grade level. Because we did it at the beginning of the year, even though the 9th graders are at the high school, those are essentially still our junior high students because they're just right out of the junior high. So these are our 8th grade, last year 7th and last year's 8th grade doing this stuff. So the way this is divvied up here, you can see that in readiness level, we have the light turquoise, which is in need of intervention. And then we have close to target or on target, which is, we got work to do, but it's not bad. Last week we had the AP regional person come down and present. Brian Trendle was the guy who administered the AP, the ACT this year, and with conversations with her and them saying that we're essentially, as a junior high, we're kind of on pace with the rest of the state of Oregon. And we can talk a little bit about more of that here in a bit. English also on target was pretty strong. 54% were on target, and a small amount here needing intervention. So this is good stuff on the English side. Reading, same thing. 60-some% close to target or on target, and then a little bit higher for needing intervention for reading. And the curious part of this all is in our OSAS testing, it was really the opposite, where our ELA test didn't make any gains and actually digressed in OSAS, but we were a little bit higher on the pre-ACT. You'll see here in a second that our science is the area that needed the most help for intervention, yet it was the one area on the OSAS, the state assessments, that had gains over the last 5 years. So a little bit different there. And then math at the OSAS level, we just kind of were at the same area the last couple of years. And here you'll see the math here for the pre-ACT. So this is the science, concerning that we have a big chunk of needing intervention here on the science level. Oh, I guess we didn't have the math on here. I'll have to pull that up for you. So just like Eli showed, one of our SMART goals is also our F rates. Our total goal for the school for content level is content level school is 10%. So our electives, PE, SPED brings things down here a little bit. We're concerned, and then we just showed maybe if there's some relevancy. Our science F rate is really high in the science eighth grade level. And then you just saw that we didn't score very well on our pre-ACT as well. I'll give you a couple seconds to digest all this. ELA 7 was high, ELA 8, math 8, and we're a little bit lower in the social studies science area, in the social studies. I'm going to talk about the number of students we have in algebra, which is a nice amount of students in our 8th grade class, which had 0 students that received an F in algebra. F rate by department, again, our science department is higher than the rest, followed by ELA, math, social studies, which is our core areas, which we would expect to be versus our PE and fine arts. When you put it all together, I know those numbers look a little bit high, but when we put it all together, we finished the semester at 10.4%, which was pretty darn close to our school-wide goal of being an F rate of 10% and below. So we're going to transition. One of our other goals is the amount of 8th graders that receive high school credit. So last semester, we had 65 students receiving credit in math, science, concert band, and jazz band, math being our Algebra 1 class. This semester, we bumped up by 22 more students. So now we have 87 students, 8th graders that are enrolled in algebra science. And now we've added the CTE class because in the first semester, students take the survey section of some of those CTE classes. And then those that excel get the opportunity to take the second semester and get high school credit. So that's kind of nice. We're at 87 students that will get credit going into the 9th grade year.
That's time, Mr. Montiel.
Okay. Well, I didn't get to behavior or attendance, but if you have any questions, you can fire away.
All right, Member Brick.
Could we just see those real quick?
Yeah, I'll go really fast.
Okay, thank you.
So you all remember your junior high years. They're a little squirrely here in when they're 12 and 13 and 14 years old. So my numbers are going to be quite a bit higher than Kayla's at destinations. So here's our pyramid of things here with our behavioral. We have a lot of great students at the junior high, and we have a small percentage that like to make some poor choices sometimes. So this gives us a little bit of an idea of our amount of incidents per people. It's a lot. Sounds like a lot. And we had 592 referrals in the first semester. Now, to answer, I think Mr. Giels asked a question about the model that is done by destinations. You know, we have a tiered level of response to disciplinary issues, and everybody is expected to have that conversation with the students at the individual level, problem solve before we get to referrals. Sometimes they need referrals because some of these are just tardies or going down the wrong stairs or things that could be directed. But sometimes they have to have a little bit more documentation. That's why we write the referrals here. Shows the time of day that the referrals happen. As you can see, in the middle of the day, what's going on here? Well, we have lunchtime. And then the days of the week, how things play out. If it was Kayla, maybe it was Eli, talked about Wednesday. Wednesday is our high point. And then Thursday, Friday, it drops considerably. I think a lot of that is due to the block schedule that we have, and the lesser transitions reduces referrals and disciplinary issues. Our high traditionally has always been disruptions or defiance, and same thing as Eli, although I'm not going to point it out. Vaping has been a trend that has been in the news a lot. Our amount of vapes has gone down dramatically from the last 2 years to now. Seems like we were chasing things all the time last couple of years. It's rare now, which is awesome. Fights, knock on wood, have been minimal. So a lot of the things we're still seeing are just defiance and disruptions in the classrooms. And then I'll finish up here with first semester attendance. Very, very similar to Eli. We have an attendance issue. It's across the state. It's in the district. Second semester here, when we started, it was rough. We had a bout of illness that was as rough of a chunk of time that I've experienced as a junior high. And now we're meeting with those kids and trying to get them back on track to make sure that they're getting caught up on their learning loss that they had when they were out. Okay, there we go. How about now? Questions?
Member Brick.
Yeah, thank you for that. I consider this probably one of the hardest times and ages to teach this. It's got to be very difficult. But I was noticing the correlation between both you and Eli's numbers of the vaping going down. And I was curious because it doesn't seem that way like nationwide or Oregon-wide. What do you think that is? Is it that we're catching them less because they become smarter at it? Or what do you think?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we are probably catching them less because they do know how to hide them, and they do know how to know that there's some places that we just can't search and we won't search. But really, and if you look at those that have been caught with vaping this year, it's really been that same circle of students that, I believe they have an addiction to it. And but overall, the reports of vaping have gone down a lot because we were even just investigating. We were spending tons of time investigating because kids were coming forward saying, hey, this is happening in the bathroom. But the amount of reports that we're having has gone down tremendously.
All right, Member Giels.
Thanks, Floyd. I'm not sure I have a clear question in mind. It just, looking at the data you presented, it just shows me that, why the kids in high school are struggling with academics in these areas, because they're struggling in the junior highs, right? I mean, they're the same areas that we see the struggles in the high school. There's the same ones that are in the junior highs. I wondered, it seemed to me that with math in particular, I don't know if I saw it correctly, but it almost looked like the 8th graders were more undergrade performing than the 7th graders. Like maybe we had somehow lost ground in that area, which was a bit surprising. Do you read that the same? Is that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're right. They are lower. And when you looked at I talked about that screening test, when you look at the initial placement for the 8th graders versus the 7th graders, they were lower. And I don't know if there's their confidence in math is lower. And also, we talk about the success maker minutes. I mean, it's a battle with the 8th grade class. I mean, consistently, they are performing lower on the desire to get better at math. So it's a struggle, but we're seeing some gains, which is great. As you saw that our red was decreasing, and I'm really excited to see how we end the school year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're making some progress in terms of helping them get there. I didn't. Did you share the number of kids that were in algebra? I don't know if maybe I missed that. I didn't hear if you had shared that.
I don't think I did, but we're about 40
out of how many kids?
Of 200.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great, because I mean, I think the other thing that in my mind is, I think if we can raise the standards in some areas, maybe it'll pull some of the kids up to those things. So the more we can see, more they can see some of their their fellow students achieving success in that area. I think that helps create a culture around that.
Yeah, and I foresee us being about 40 to 45 next year as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Principal Montiel. Great job. I can attest as a parent, he talked about success maker minutes. I can tell you that when Lincoln Ainsworth, the 7th grader at the junior high, doesn't hit his minutes, Principal Montiel, he's bird dog in Lincoln to get those minutes, which is pretty cool. And then I just want to say a comment. The English scores in the pre-ACT are a glow for us. And we need to acknowledge a lot of that work is elementary teachers, right? And middle school teachers. That's a group, that's a continuum. But conversely, our teachers receive a lot of PD in literacy and reading. They don't receive as much PD in math. So we are definitely shifting the math culture in the district. We're seeing some glows and some bright spots, but the more kids we can get ready, you guys have heard me say this ad nauseum, the more kids we can get ready for Algebra 1 in that 8th and 9th grade year, boy, their math ceilings get really high, and then they have lots of confidence, and then they're taking those courses, those college-ready courses when they leave us, or as Eli said, the ASVAB, right? Or if they go into the trades, they need to be ready for Algebra 1. All right, we're going to move into upper elementary, and I'm going to turn it over. I'm looking at Mr. Roberts. Principal Roberts, does that work for you? And then we'll go Principal McKnight.
Yes. Good evening.
You're on the
Did
clock.
everybody see my screen out there?
We got it.
All right. Before I start, I just want to add to what Floyd and Eli were saying about math and the struggles with the math students to junior high and high school. I can tell you that I'm one that hates using COVID as an excuse. But in the upper elementary level, we had parents that would come in and tell us that they could read with their students at home, but they could not do the math homework with their students. And so I know that during COVID, that was a struggle. So I just wanted to add that piece. I have a new computer, and you guys are freezing at some points on my camera. So just let me know if I'm struggling coming through here. So Millicoma School, our our data, there we go. Our glows for Millicoma, our 3rd grade reading accuracy scores were up, as well as our school-wide accuracy scores are all at 85%. So 85% of our students at Millicoma have reading accuracy at benchmark. We have 159 students that are receiving tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. And the numbers that I'm going to give you here are kids that are now at benchmark that are receiving those. So our word recognitions, we had 35% of those kids are now at benchmark. in the word recognition test that we give. Our letter combination tests, we now have 43% more kids at benchmark than we had at the beginning of the year. Our advanced phonics are up 14% for students at benchmark, and our fluency is up 17%. And again, those are just our kids that are receiving tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. So those are our most striving learners. As a school, our comprehension scores are up, which is great. Our biggest grow that we have from reading is our fluency's gone down, and you're going to see that here in our data. And it's very concerning to us. It's not uncommon on the middle of the year assessment because it can be difficult, but it's something we need to address for sure. Math grows. Our MOI scores were up, as you're going to see, and Success Maker has been a real positive addition. Our math grows is we need to find an intervention system that meets our needs. Savvis didn't come with a canned intervention program like Amplify did with M-Class, and so we have some work to do there. And our math facts continue to be a struggle. Our multiplication division facts continue to be a struggle for our 5th and 6th graders. Looking at our composite scores to start the year, you can see that we actually went down overall as a building. We started the year with 59% of our kids at benchmark for reading, and that number went down to 56.5% at the mid-year. The biggest reason for that, as you're going to see, is the fluency, and I'll get into that. Kids that need intensive interventions, the reds went up by 5%. And again, most of that is attributed to the fluency. Hopefully you'll be able to read this screen. It's quite, well, some of it's quite small, but these are the composite scores for our 3rd graders. Our 3rd grade composite scores, we started off the year with 20% of our kids well below benchmark, 20% just below benchmark, and that number increased on our MOI to 26%, excuse me, well below, and 22% just below. And again, the biggest thing is the reading fluency. Our reading fluency went down. DIBELS is a program that expects you to make gains as you go throughout the year. And so if you're not making gains, if you stay stagnant, you will go down on your composite score. So our fluency, again, is a bright spot, but we have to attack our accuracy is a bright spot, but we have to attack the fluency. And that's what we're doing right now with our core reviews. Every grade level has a focus right now on fluency within core and a lot of our interventions. 4th grade, they don't do as many assessments as 3rd grade, but you can see our composite scores for our middle of the year we did have an increase in our reds and our yellows. Reading accuracy is our bright spot. 90% of our kids in 4th grade read accurately. But that fluency, as you can see, we went from 22% of our kids well below benchmark to start the year up to 27% at the middle of the year. And again, we're attacking fluency throughout every grade level in core. Our reading comprehension scores, though, did show improvements at every grade level from our BOI to our MOI. I think at every grade level. There might be one here that's coming up where it's not, but we did have some gains to celebrate, that's for sure. It's just that the fluency has been a big disappointment for us, for our staff. 5th grade, you can see, again, the trend continues. The composite score, we had more reds in the middle of the year. Fluency, as you can see, we went up 4% in terms of kids that are well below grade level in fluency. And at 5th grade, you can see our comprehension scores did have an increase of kids meeting benchmark, which is great. 6th grade, we had a big jump in our composites. We went 9% of our students from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year went to well below benchmark, and that's concerning. We're addressing that within our 6th grade team. You can see that their fluency scores had a big drop. And this is the one grade level where our Maze scores actually had a drop as well. And so we're addressing with 6th grade some strategies. When our last data review meeting, we looked at some strategies that we can use to possibly address both of those. These next couple slides, the charts on them, they're not great for right now. This is our disaggregated data from DIBELS. The reason they're not great is we're pulling these from the new data suite, and we're still learning about the data suite. And because of that, for example, I don't have, like it says right here, I have 62 all 3rd grade in the green, 20 in the yellow and 19 in the red. That's too many third graders right there. So when it's pulling the disaggregated data, it's not completely accurate right now. But I wanted to show this chart, and I think we all did, to show you that at some point when we get our new data suite fine-tuned, we're going to be able to pull some good disaggregated data for our students within the DIBELS. So right now it needs to be taken with a grain of salt because the numbers don't line up. But at some point in the future, it's going to be a really valuable tool. So I'm going to skip over the 5th and 6th one as well, again, because the numbers just aren't accurate at this point. This is another chart that will help us at some point, again, from that data suite. These are our students that are our ELL students, our SPED students, and our TAG students. And as you can see, we're meeting the needs of our TAG students. We need to do a better job with our ELL students, and we really need to do a better job with our SPED students. And we're taking measures to focus on those groups. But this is a good chart to show where those groups are at. Historically, you can see with our composite scores only, when we started in 22-23, we were sitting at about 47% of our students at or above benchmark. And now you can go down to our boy from this year, and you can see that we were above 50%. We were at 59%, almost 60% of our students at or above grade level. So the reading interventions that we are doing are helping us. We just need to continue to focus on our most striving learners as we're going through our intervention systems, our tier 2, our tier 3 interventions. Those kids are getting 30 minutes every day of intervention in reading and then another 30 in math. I will say that when we go to do our composites as well, like the previous chart that was the SPED chart, our students in special education, those assessments are tough for our special education students, because anytime you tell a student you're going to do a timed reading assessment, and a lot of our special education students, immediately anxiety kicks in for time that it's timed, and it becomes a struggle for them. We've done some accommodations for some of our special education students. We try not to do accommodations because we want to see where they're at on a level playing field. But for example, we have a student that has to have movement, has to move. So we let him stand up and read it on a big screen because we didn't feel that was an accommodation that would deviate his score from the other students. And he did have about a 20 word per minute increase by doing that. So just an example of where some of the tests are struggles for some of our special education students. Thanks, David. Math-wise, you can see here for our 3rd to 5th grade students, we started the year with 57% of our students below grade level in math. We've got that number down to 42% below grade level at the Moy. So we are doing better. We increased 9% in our students that started the year meeting, and now they're meeting on the middle of the year. That's our 3rd to 5th grade. SAVIS is a different test for 6th grade. And as you can see, we started the year with 69% of our students below grade level. And we've got that number down to 59% of our students now that are below grade level. So we are chunking away at that. Just like Floyd talked about, we gave the students both of those below grade, on grade for the beginning of the year. We're not going to do that going forward. So we have better data to compare. This is our math growth by the grade levels. You can see we had growth at every grade level from 3rd grade all the way to 6th. And I'm going to cruise through this because I want to show our Success Maker. Success Maker has been a great addition for us. You can see our 95% of our students are making acceptable performance at Millicoma Success Maker. And I want to say, of the 5% that aren't, a few of those students are actually above their grade level in math, but because they're not excelling at the rate that Success Maker wants, it shows that they're not making acceptable performance, but many of them are working on things that are above their grade level. There's at least 4 students I can name that are well above grade level in math, but according to Success Maker, they're not making acceptable performance. But Success Maker has been a great addition for our building, and Millicoma has done a good job of meeting our 60 minutes per week. I have attendance and behavior, but it looks like my time's up. David, is that correct? I believe that
is. You may have noticed they were pretty close together because I didn't give you your 5-minute warning until 3 minutes. So that was on me.
Oh, that's all right. I love you.
All right, we will hold off Principal Roberts on attendance. I just real quick footnote. Team Millicoma has been an early leader for us and success maker in terms of the minutes and just adopting it. A lot of our schools followed their lead. They did an outstanding job. Okay, Member Hutchison.
Gary, did you say that multiplication skills were down?
Yeah, well, when we're looking at our 5th and 6th grade students and their biggest area of need is math facts, multiplication and division. And those simple and we're
how are they taught those skills? Like, we all learned the multiplication tables and memorized them. Do kids learn that anymore?
yes, they do. And but we also obviously use some other ways with Common Core strategies. But we are looking at doing some things here where we're bringing in flashcards. We're looking at getting decks of cards and letting kids play war and those kinds of games just to work on those fluency facts. And all of our staff have seen that as an area of need. And so we're trying to get creative in how we address it. I have an article that that was given to me by my intervention specialist that talks about one of the things nationally that students are nationally, we're seeing students with their math facts lower and lower. And that's one of the reasons they feel like national test scores in math have gone down is the lack of math facts.
And is a lot of that for this age group because they would have originally learned these things in the grades where they weren't in class because of COVID?
I don't know about math, about the multiplication and division, because they usually start that 3rd grade. You start learning those and then into 4th and 5th. But I will tell you, they were behind in terms of their number sense and just some of those things because our 4th grade, 5th grade kids were kindergarten during COVID time, that kind of age range. And so they started behind the 8 ball when it was those addition, subtraction, and just those basic number sense items that we're now still trying to catch up on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Member Roblin.
I would say as a math guy, this has been a fight I've had with elementary and everyone for a long time. Everybody wanted to teach the theory and everybody was leaving out the idea that you just have to have a fluency in it. And I think it's the big reason why we don't do as well in algebra. You can't do algebra if you have to work out each multiplication problem as you're going through it. So, factoring things, all those other kinds of skills that are needed in algebra, all are based on having a really good foundation in fluency in addition, multiplication, and division facts. So I'm happy you're doing it. I think it's the only thing is one thing that if we really engage the parents, that's something they can do at home. I agree with what you said earlier about COVID. A lot of the parents, I think Floyd said that too, parents couldn't help kids in math during COVID. They could always have helped them in flashcards and doing multiplication, addition facts. And I wish we would spend more time on that and make sure that people understand how important it is for later being able to fluently do mathematics.
Yeah, 100%. We talk a lot about fluency with reading and literacy. It's now starting to shift. We're talking as much about fluency in math. Yep. Right? Because if you don't have fluency in everything you just talked about, Member Roblin, the cognitive load is too hard for our kids when they start to get into algebra concepts in 6th grade and middle school. So yeah, we are definitely talking more about fluency in math, and parents just start talking about fractions with the pizza, right? Just doing little things. Any other questions for Principal Roberts? Okay, great job. We will move over to his colleague, Principal McKnight at Sunset. We can't hear you, Shelley. There you go.
I'm working on it, but I tried to present and here we go. Okay, sorry. I'm working on it.
No worries. While she's pulling it up, Principal Roberts talked about our kids behind right? And our kids are behind. Some of that is still, I don't like to talk about COVID either as an excuse anymore, but there is a reality. So we talk a lot about a year, you got to get a year's growth. The reality is we got to get a year plus a year to get our kids caught up. It's got to be a year plus a year, and you have to be really efficient and strategic to pull that off. Shelley, you want us to come back to you?
No,
there you
no,
go.
sorry about that. I just was struggling for a second.
You're good.
And so are you seeing my notes or are you seeing the slideshow?
We're seeing the slideshow.
Okay, good. Okay. So to start with, sorry about that. I can't see what you're seeing, and so I was struggling for a second. And I feel like I'm sort of in a speed dating session right now or something because things have been going so quickly. So just real quickly, our middle of year basic literacy skills. At this point in time in the school year, we have 39.5% of our students at grade level, 21.3% who are nearly there, and then 39.2% who need strategic support. Scores by benchmark. So we're looking at beginning of year and middle of year scores. As you can see, we had some growth in middle of year in terms of meeting benchmark, but we also had a 3% increase in students who were not meeting benchmark. This breaks down the areas, as Gary talked about, similar situation at Sunset. Reading fluency has been the area where we need the most focused strategic work. We had students grow in other areas, but reading fluency is the area that all of our grade level teams are now focused on from the middle of year to end of year in improving. Each grade level has goals surrounding fluency that we review at each of our Friday meetings to discuss progress, student progress, collaboration. Third grade. Third grade, again, you can see beginning of year to middle of year, composite scores did not reflect the growth that we saw in reading accuracy and in spelling, which I'll show you on the next slide. But again, as Principal Roberts stated, reading fluency makes a greater impact on their composite score. And so it's weighted more heavily. And so again, I wanted to show you that third grade made gains in spelling and reading comprehension and reading accuracy. Fluency is the most heavily weighted and where we need to do the most work. Fourth grade made growth again in reading accuracy from 54% at benchmark to 80%. But again, reading fluency is weighted higher. Fifth grade also made growth in reading accuracy from 65% to 77% at benchmark. But again, that reading fluency is where everyone is focused. Sixth grade, every student's composite score went up. However, reading fluency being the most heavily weighted made an impact on that. But it was nice to see with sixth grade how their composite scores increased from beginning of year to middle of year. Disaggregated data, again, reflective similarly to Millicoma. Our TAG students performing at the highest level in their composite scores. Our SPED students are the most striving, and our English language learners are fairly split. Historical DIBELS data, whoops. For third grade, we're seeing growth from 22-23 to 24-25. Again, our beginning of year data seems to indicate students performing at a higher level than our middle of year data. Again, I think that has to do with the challenge of the middle of year assessment. Fourth grade, beginning of year to middle of year, saw more growth. Definitely an increase in our students above benchmark, and a small decrease in our students who are scoring below benchmark. Fifth grade, similarly, our students are growing in terms of above benchmark and staying very similarly to the same for students who are below benchmark. The thing that I wanted to note, though, that you can't see on here is that we talk about these shades of red and shades of green. And so what I wanted to point out is we see growth in the fifth grade, except for the well below benchmark, but also students move from green to yellow with a 44-point growth. But unfortunately, not enough to stay in the green. So again, we celebrate the wins and the small successes for students who are moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, the way that this data is presented, you can't see growth in terms of shades of red or shades of yellow, shades of green, and so on. Sixth grade is seeing growth each year, moving the needle in the right direction. Math data. Hey, David, I can't see you anymore. So give me a heads up when you're 5 minutes. Am I at 5 minutes yet?
You got 3 minutes left. Yes.
Oh God, I gotta hurry. Okay. School-wide students are performing better in math. So we're looking at 3rd through 5th grade, and 75% of our students in that grade level were far below. And again, we shrunk the red, increased the yellow, but vastly increased the green. And so I want to recognize that for our math students. Broken down, let's see, we had a 59-point growth average in 3rd grade. I'm going to skip that one, and just for the sake of time, we had a 40-point growth average in the 4th grade. We had a 36-point average growth in the 5th grade, and a 22-point average growth in the 6th grade. As you probably saw, I went through them quickly because I'm running out of time. We're still in the red in some of these grade levels, but again, I just wanted to point out the growth. We're approaching again in the 5th grade. We're approaching in the 4th grade, and we are getting really close to meeting in the 3rd. Middle of year math data for the 6th grade. Again, beginning of year showed a lot of red. 79.9% did not meet and we reduced that to 53.7%, does not meet. 53.7%, I want to acknowledge, is still a lot of students not meeting. But we've got some growth in the green, some growth in the blue, and some growth in the yellow as well.
You've got 1 minute.
Okay, attendance. Let's see, just want to briefly show you regular attendees, 193 students versus our chronically absent, which is 163 students. Average daily attendance for Sunset so far this year is 88.08%. We're shooting for 90, as are the rest of the schools, and we're close. We've had some days where we've had 90%, and most recently, the week before spring break, we had some 91%. But as you can see here, attendance by day of the week, Thursday is our best student attendance day, and grade level wise, so far this year, 5th grade is doing better. Discipline. 8% of our students have 6 or more disciplinary behavior referrals. 8.8% of our students have 2 to 5 infractions, and 83.1% of our students have 0 to 1 behavior referrals. Again, so that's time.
Okay, any questions for Principal McKnight? It's like Member Giels has his hand raised.
Thank you. Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate your presentation and being a part of hearing some of this data over this last years too has been helpful. I just want to say a word of appreciation. You know, this is actually the best data we've had regarding student achievement than we've ever had. You know, and now that we've been using this for a while, it's really been helpful, at least for me, to be able to see over time and track over time and have some consistent set of markers to really establish how things are going. Our previous data system, we just could not drill down in this way. And I'm a little hesitant just to, you know, I know some of the data looks strange at a midpoint. So I always wanted to hold a little bit of judgment so we can see it over time, because I think sometimes you can point too closely at one marker and really that, you know, might be skewed later. So I do want to just kind of hold off like judgment, but I do see the last few years has been kind of helpful in just seeing where we go. One thing, you know, I'm glad to see that it seems like we're making some success at Sunset regarding some of the math scores, which I think that's the first time I've heard that tonight. So that's great that maybe we're actually, you know, bending the curve in some way in that area. But then it sounds like we're having more struggles sometimes in some of the language arts there as well. And I wonder, you know, when I look at this, you know, it seems like the data doesn't really show this. It's more, I think, when you drill down. But I guess I'm just wondering, it seems like sometimes the students that are doing well are doing better, right? The kids that are a little bit already there, they maybe are in the more the middle, they're moving forward. But I'm wondering if the kids on the lower end, if we're actually losing them further sometimes when I look at the data, like we're actually creating some bifurcation, like kids that are doing well, they're doing well, even better, they're making progress, we're going. But then I wonder if these other kids are sort of being left behind a little bit. I don't think the data by itself tells me that, but it might suggest that could be what's going on at times with some of our youth.
I think that if we could go into a deeper dive and really look at student growth in terms of the data, you know, you're right. It's not a clear picture of how our students are really doing. But I have to say, you know, our intervention team is working really hard to work with our students to move them forward. And again, we're seeing growth in a lot of areas in terms of reading. It's just not hitting, you know, not hitting pay dirt yet in terms of reading fluency and then having that huge impact on their composite scores.
Yeah, and member Giels is right, and Chad talks about this quite a bit because he's got a lot of historical knowledge and perspective of the district, and he has enough data points from a number of years ago to say, hey, look, we're not where we want to be, but he's been able to even show me some data from 3, 4, 5 years ago. And look, as you said, bending the curve in the right direction. And we do have this internal conversation. We met Chad and Peggy and myself have been meeting with our tag parents. And we also have to serve those kids, right? We've been so focused on remediation that our tag kids, to me, it's as important as special education, because we have to maximize their potential just like everybody else's potential. And if our tag students aren't engaged, if they're bored, then we're losing them. So it really is. It's all the way across the entire spectrum. We've got to meet all those students' needs. Okay, other questions for Shelley? Amelia.
Yeah, sorry. The reading specialist in me just wants to say something about the 3-6 scores. So I know, because I was doing a different job at the beginning of the year, that our 3-6 schools, almost all grade levels, set a goal for accuracy. And so I am super excited that all of them improved in accuracy. And you have to have accuracy before you have fluency. So I'm excited from those accuracy scores to see the fluency scores in the end of the year, because you can't be fluent if you're not accurate. And so and that's the same with math. You first have to know the fact, be able to do it, with fluency. And so I'm really excited to see what our fluency scores look like. Unfortunately, because they are weighted heavier in our composite scores at 3-6, so even if they did grow, they didn't grow enough to put them out of the red. So anyways, that's the only thing I wanted to say, that I'm just really excited about that for the 3-6 schools. Sorry, I know
That's
it's not
awesome.
my presentation, but I had to say that.
We need people who geek out and who are excited about literacy domain growth. That's the culture we're creating. All right, any other questions for Shelley? All right, well, we are going to finish up here with our lower, where really the foundation is laid and all the real work happens in the school district is K2. So we're gonna wrap up, and then Little Pirates. So let's go, Kara. Principal Davidson, you've taken the short straw, and then we'll go Amelia, and then Carly.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, well, I don't know that I've drawn the short straw because this has all been explained, so I don't have to do any explanation, right? Like, we know what we're doing now. Here are our glows and grows for ELA. Our kindergarten grew their green by 35% and shrunk the red by 29%. You heard Dr. Ainsworth at the beginning of this talk about it's all about growing the green and shrinking the red. Kindergarten is doing that at a really great pace. 77% of our kindergartners were proficient in the middle of the year in phonemic awareness, which, as I've told you all before, is a really important building block to learning how to read. Nearly 70% of our first graders are proficient in phonemic awareness at middle of year, and 78% of our second graders met spelling benchmark standards, which sometimes doesn't seem that important, but it is truly a big indicator of future readers. Our grows for ELA, word reading fluency and decoding in first and second grade. So our core review plans reflect that. For math glows, all of our students are consistently meeting their 60 minutes per week in Success Maker. Our teachers were really didn't think it could be done when we first set that sprint goal, and it's happening every week. Nearly half of our students are meeting benchmark standards. Majority of our kindergartners are meeting grade level standards at this point, and 96% of our students are making acceptable performance rates in Success Maker. Grows for math, we need, like I think Gary said, a better intervention system. Those take time to build once you have a good core curriculum. And so we are trying to improve that. And I think with further alignment, K6 and Savvis, we're going to be able to do that district-wide. And really understanding Savvis, spending more time with the curriculum to be able to make changes there. You've seen this plenty of times already. This is East Side's triangle. We want that core, that green, to be 80%, not 50. but we are slowly moving in the right direction. We would like that red to be smaller, of course. A comparison between our boy and our Moy. Boys on the bottom. Again, we're shrinking the red and growing the green. I'd like it to look a little bit different, but it's trending in the right direction. Here's our kindergarten all-stars. I mentioned this at the beginning, that this is what you want your boy to Moy data to look like. I think this is an ideal shift. It does not look as great at first and second grade. Again, I've told you before, like bringing kindergartners in with clean slates is a great place to see growth. And we have seen it here. Our kindergarten team has done a phenomenal job of aligning their, like staying aligned to their curriculum map and their pacing, and they are not missing days. They are not skipping skills days, and it is it's helping out in the data for sure. This is their skills broken down. Just like a quick overview, you can see that red is shrinking nearly everywhere, except for vocabulary in this case, and word reading fluency. To note here, 91% of our kindergarten students are scoring at low risk. Their risk indicator is low. First grade, not a lot of growth in the right direction here. We stayed kind of stagnant from boy to Moy. What's really been great about that is our teachers are super motivated to make that shift, and their core review plan is indicative of that. I was in first grade classrooms today doing a core review walkthrough that Amelia helped kind of design. And we worked with our interventionists to kind of build those plans together with our teams. And this team, we had to go back to the drawing board a little bit because there's so much to learn in first grade. There's so many skills to be taught. It's a very difficult grade level to teach in terms of ELA. And so you really, really have to drill down. And so we are stuck kind of at letter sounds, the CLS and the decoding. And so their core review has to hit those first. As Amelia mentioned before, like you gotta get these skills before you can get the rest, right? We all want to be fluent readers, but until these are down pat, we're not going to get anywhere. So they've drilled it down so much so that when I'm going in to observe, I'm not just looking at what the teacher's doing. I'm looking to see which students they've named in their target to see if they're addressing those students, to make sure they're calling on those students, to make sure that they are quickly observing to see if students are catching on. And so they're doing a really nice job, and I'm hopeful to see that change. Second grade looks a little bit the same. They also have core review plans to address the needs there. But as you see down here, that 84% of our second grade students are in the low risk category. Again, with the disaggregated data, I think Gary mentioned that we don't know how accurate it is right now. Like if I was to really go in and count numbers, I'm not sure we'd see it there. We have, though, with our Oregon Data Suite team, talked about that and how we're going to clean that up. So hopefully we'll be there soon. But like he said, this is great data to finally have access to in a format that's easy to use. More disaggregated data here. Our problems are similar to what the other elementary teachers have talked about, or excuse me, principals. Limited English proficiency numbers. We need to do some more work there. Our tag students, we can always do better with. Of course, we want this to look like that for them, but SPED needs some work. I'm confident that with Kayla Crook and her, new SPED model, we will see some improvements there. No pressure, Kayla, of course. Our math data, I got to say, it's been, as someone who taught with Bridges for all of my years of teaching, it's this math curriculum, is not without its issues that teachers are running into, but it is sure nice to have easy data to look at. David, you kind of mentioned that in this data review, we can finally look and see growth just like with one glance. And so this is our boy to Moy comparison. We'd like to see that green grow again, and that's happening. And then you've seen this visual before. We have our boy at the top, Moy at the bottom, and growth is happening in the right direction. And 96% of our students are meeting acceptable performance gains in Success Maker. Those minutes are paying off. We've all talked about attendance. I think what's important with our sprint goals is that we are talking about attendance and in a way that, you know, we're looking for solutions. At Eastside, we have found that the kids are really motivated to receive a gold star. Gold stars are still working, you guys. And we put a big gold star on in their classroom, and they get a little Tootsie Roll or something if everyone's here for the day and kids are motivated to be here. And I think that we need to, you know, start there, because as you can see in kindergarten, it's hard to make parents understand that kindergarten super matters now. I think there was a time where it was just kind of like practice for school, and now it is, we're teaching them to read. So getting families to understand that shift is difficult, but motivating kids with gold stars we can do. So I'm hopeful that we'll see an upturn in our attendance like everyone else, especially after the illness that our town faced. Behavior data, that tiny little red triangle at the top is a good sign. But you will continue to hear people complain about behaviors in school because they can be very extreme. Not surprising that our kindergartners have the most behavior referrals. They're still learning to be, you know, humans in society. So that's our job. And we like that first grade bar to be low like that. Second grade is having some difficulties this year. Most of our behavior referrals are occurring in the classroom, which makes a lot of sense. That's where they're spending most of their time. David, does that second hand mean time? 1 minute, right?
Yes, 1 minute.
Okay, and then on the flip side of our behavior referrals at Eastside School, we celebrate positive office referrals. And we had a rough start to the year of remembering to get those out, but and this looks different now. This was made, you know, for our last data meeting. So kids love to be in here and celebrate that. They just get a little free time in my office. I send those pictures home to their parents via Parent Square, and they receive rave reviews. I get a lot of this is the best day of my life, which indicates they haven't lived very long. I know, but it's really every single time I have a group of students in here, someone says that. And so pretty special, pretty easy to do, and that tradition I hope will continue. So way to go, Panthers. Questions?
Any questions for Principal Davidson? Member Geels.
Thank you, Kara, again for a great presentation, and excited to see how sort of the base of our schools is really getting a good start, and I think, you know, that beginning I think will continue to feed the rest of our schools too moving forward. I wanted to ask, I know the other schools, it looked like you were still allowing people to take a at grade level and a below grade level. It sounds like the other schools have decided not to do that, or are you all looking at the same, or are you guys still do that? Okay.
Yeah, it's truly just like getting to know what to do, right? I mean, we kind of have to immerse ourselves in it to figure out what we need to work on. And so, yeah, it was a confusing start for sure, because you know, there's an urgency to get it done, and also not a lot of time to learn every little last bit about it. So yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Kara, why are things going so well?
Great question, Addie. I have a really great team. We moved into the science of reading before we were asked to move in, right? And it was a boots on the ground effort. It came from the teachers themselves. They were sick of seeing data that didn't reflect well on them. They finally got to a space. Amelia was a staff member at that time, and kind of helped lead the charge there, and really it started with a book study that she and another colleague put on, and because, know better, do better, right? Amelia learned some things and then she spread that information to others and it caught on like wildfire. And I think what really helped was these teachers, many of whom had been teaching for 20 plus years, in a really important grade level, we've learned that first grade, Amelia was a former first grade teacher, they had to also grieve that we were doing it wrong. And I fall into that camp as well. I was doing it wrong, but I didn't know any better. And so they were able to kind of admit that, which is hard, I think, for teachers to do. Because that's a lot of years. That's a lot of kids who you may have, let down. And so they, as a group, me included, were able to go, okay, that happened. That sucks. We feel terrible about that. But now we know better. So in order to make us feel better about that, we must do better. And so it really came from within. It came from them and spread upward, right? And so it was really easy for me to support. And I've learned a ton along the way from the people who are doing the work. And I have a really great, there's people in the right places here. And I was able to make some shifts to make that happen as the principal. And so it feels like it's becoming a well-oiled machine. And like we might have a model to use for math, we just have to understand more.
Love seeing it.
Okay, other comments or questions? I think it's important to know when we talk, as Kara was talking, there's been lots of talk about literacy and math, but just from a very practical standpoint, I want you to understand that when we're teaching a class, and let's say we're a class, and Justin is in first grade and I'm in Eastside and I'm struggling with number sense. Because we have data that is live and we don't have to wait to the state assessment, then if Amelia is my teacher, Amelia can say, hey, Justin's struggling with number sense. So then she creates instructional groupings because there's probably 3 other kids in class struggling with number sense. And they design their instruction and they're prescriptive and they provide the intervention to that kid. We have not always had not just a Coos Bay thing. We haven't always had that level of just being fluid in technology. And that's where technology is an advantage and we can leverage it and we can create those groups. And conversely, maybe we're in a class at Eastside and I'm looking at David and we look at the data and we're like, well, David's already in algebraic reasoning. Okay, we have to figure that out. We have to accelerate him. So just being really intentional with our instruction. Okay, Principal Ed, you're up.
All right. Well, let's talk about Madison. Oh, I got to click on the other screen. Sorry, I know that. Okay, really quick, just some overview of our glows and grows. So for reading, just that our data is improving over time at Madison. And we really need to work on our students having more practice with their skills that they haven't gained to close the gap. And that was based on our data from the middle of the year and how we set our action plans at all the grade levels. We're focusing on our nonsense word fluency and decoding skills, which would be our accuracy in 3-6, being accurate at reading words. And then we also, for our grow, really need our kindergarten data to improve quicker. As you saw with like the Eastside data, we need that to happen because in kindergarten, an intervention in kindergarten is 15 minutes. But when you look at our 3rd and 4th and 5th graders, the reason the red friends aren't growing as fast is because it takes more time. The farther you're behind, then the more time you need to catch up. And so we really need to grow our kindergarten data. As far as math, all of our students overall grew in the grade level, and we need to be more effective at targeting skills to close those gaps for our most striving students in math. And we had at first grade, we had one of our standards, and I'll show this later, that was over 70%, and it's a critical math skill. And so really excited about that. That is adding within 100 and using concrete visuals. So let's look at some data. So here is our beginning of the year compared to our middle of the year. So our green grew, not enough, but it did change, and our intensive shrunk. And so that means, kids from the red moved to the yellow and yellow moved to the green. And so, I mean, we want that red to shrink. So that was great. This is just the same thing, just compared side by side like that. These are our strands. And so I'd really like you to notice the strand that says nonsense word fluency, correct letter sounds, and then also just words read. That's the ability to decode and understand phonics. And so that is at that K2 level, especially K1, we really need to hone in and improve for our students overall. And it starts with letter sounds. Letter sound, being able to fluently name letter sounds and doing it without really having to think about it and use your working memory is really, really the key to starting to decode, because then you're not thinking about what is the letter sound, you're thinking about blending the word together. And so if you notice, our letter sounds did grow in the green and blue for kindergarten, but I would have liked to see it grow more, but it did change, and we did trend in the right direction. Same with our reading fluency for decoding. And those are the really two most important skills that I'm going to kind of point out for our K2 grades data. And if you're looking here, again, at first grade, our letter sounds, that automaticity grew, and same with our word reading. So now we just need to really, our friends who are in the red, we need that to shrink. We need more of them to move to the yellow. And that's really that struggle of, it's not that they didn't grow, but they need to grow a lot more. They have to make more growth, like Justin was saying earlier, to catch up. And then with our second grade, here's our overall. And again, I want you to just look at that decoding. So our second grade, we saw a large portion of ours, we're at, the numbers are so small, I don't know off the top of my head what they are. It's over 50%. And so that's exciting for our middle of the year. Like Kara said, we'd like to see our composite scores at 80%. That's an ideal data. So, but any of these scores at close to 80% by the end of the year is also a move in the right direction. I'd also like you to notice just the spelling. Spelling is a really big indicator for any of our primary students, any of our students, of what they actually have. To read it is one thing, but to be able to generalize it and spell it really shows their strong foundation in phonics. And so when you do look at this data later, with possibly, if you want to be able to see those numbers closer, I'd really pay attention to the spelling piece for all of our students. The disaggregated data is wonky, so I'm going to skip this slide just because of that. Oops, hold on, I clicked on the wrong thing. And then it's linked. Mine's linked to something else. One second. But this one is a little just for our limited English proficiency students, 55%, we're still in the red. Really want to pay attention to is the SPED. We have, as a district, we really need to improve on the SPED, shrinking that red in our special education across grade levels and at Madison too. And then within our tag, you'll see what our percentages are there. So that's disaggregated for those special populations. And then phonemic awareness. This is a kind of a historical grow, because like Kara said, that phonemic awareness is super important primary skill to learn to be able to read. And so historically at Madison, we are improving that green and blue. And so that is exciting to see. And then same with, this is historical data for overall decoding at Madison, not just one grade level. And so we are growing that ability within our students over time to be better decoders. So, and the first indicator of strong readers is decoding. And once students are able to decode, the next indicator is their ability to understand words, their vocabulary. And so at the K2 level, we really want to see decoding as this grow, and so our kids can read the words, and then the next part is also being able to understand them. Okay, and then here's some, oops, hold on, sorry. Got a little excited there. And then we've got some more historical data and as you see, we're getting, our green is improving and growing. So here's some math data. This is our overall school. So for our middle of the year, compared to the beginning of the year, we are growing the green. And so that's good. And also growing our, we need to be shrinking that red to moving it to yellow also. So we'd like to see that improve. These are some graphs that actually I got from our intervention specialist that she shared, Mrs. Herbs. I just want to give her a little shout out for that. And these are within the specific domains, the performance domains that I talked about, how first grade had one at 70%. And we really want to pay attention to those number and operations being in the green and blue, and algebraic reasoning. Those are where we're going to get our bang for our buck. And here's our first grade. And so again, I had said that they had that 70% in the numbers up and operations, but I guess it was a specific strand within the numbers and operations. Sorry, let me make that delineation. So that's why it's not 70% here. And then for second grade, here's our same, the domains and how they did in each domain at the second grade. When we look at attendance, we have very similar attendance to the rest of our schools as far as regular attenders and chronic absenteeism. And we at Madison are starting to do where if all students are there in a class that day, they are getting a sign that says they're all here, and then each kid is getting a tiger ticket, trying to really get those students excited about attendance and saying, Mom, I want to go to school, you know. And so we have started an attendance, the more intense attendance incentives at Madison. When we think about behavior, like Kara had said, we have a lot of kids who are doing the right thing at Madison. And so it's a very small majority or minority that are not, that are, you know, really striving with behavior. Those behaviors are big though. But, you know, when we look at our data, most of our kids are doing the right thing. So we have started at Madison doing positive office referrals also, but it's just in the baby stages. As far as incidents at the grade level, and then by day of the week, Wednesday seems to be our day that we have the most, and second grade has the highest for numbers of referrals. And then here we have our positive office referrals. Like I said, we just started in January, and so how many students we have in kindergarten as compared to how many students had received a positive office referral, which this was data for just when we were supposed to do it originally. So these numbers are higher than they were in January and end of January. Okay, and I just thank you for your time, and hopefully I didn't go too fast. I'm a little more nervous than I thought I would be, and also I'm almost the last person, so I'm trying to get it done. Does anyone have
All right,
questions?
awesome job. Any questions, comments for Principal Ed? We have Member Geels, Member Brick.
Thank you, Amelia. Appreciate that presentation. And it's nice to see that you guys are using a lot of the same things that are working at both the east and the west side of our district. I did notice that it seems like the kids obviously have some additional challenges, at least in terms of their academic scores, right? I mean, did you see that in the data as well in terms of kind of where they're starting off?
Typically our kindergartens are very similar. When our students come into Eastside and Madison, we have very similar red. Some years Madison's a little higher, some year Eastside's a little higher, but it's typically around 75, 80% of our kids come in the red to kindergarten at both schools. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. So I just thought one of the slides that seemed to indicate, I thought was a higher rate in the red than East Side, but maybe that was for all students, or maybe I just, there's so much data, it's hard to really digest all of it.
Yeah. Do you mean like the composite score triangle at the beginning?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we do have more students overall in the red at Madison right now. Yes, correct.
And just some of the data also, what I had said before seems also seems to be potential, which is that some of the kids that are sort of doing better are doing better longer, and the kids that maybe are struggling at the beginning are still having more struggles that are sort of weighing them down. That again, you'd have to look for student by student, but the data could be interpreted that way potentially.
historically we've had the idea that it's important to give students time. Time is not a benefit. We need to see the students who are struggling immediately and start intervening right away. Early intervention is the best prevention. And so we really need to focus, and our built team at Madison, our building team for ORTI, has really talked about how we want to address kindergarten differently next year to really prevent failure as opposed to allow the time, and then the gap just gets wider and wider. So
Member Brick.
Thank you. I was just going to say, David covered some of my questions, so thank you for that, David. But Amelia, this has been great to get your unique perspective from where you've been earlier. Yeah. I think coming in with that, focus on reading and early literacy prevention, and I think it lends to all of it, right? Our math scores, our reading scores. I'm wondering for both the kindergarten through second, is there any data, and maybe Carly will go into this, but from our preschool kiddos, our little pirates coming into kindergarten, are we seeing any overall, readiness improvement? Mm-hmm. Are they coming up higher than the red? Is there any data for that?
So I don't have that on the slideshow. I know that our intervention specialists have looked at that a little bit. And so they might be able to give that data to you from like the beginning of this year, how our kids that were from Little Pirates came in. Possibly. I know at least one of our intervention specialists keeps that. I think they both do at the K2 level, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So.
Thank you. I would love to see that data.
Yeah.
If we could start tracking that would be great.
For sure.
Great. Yeah, great question. Carly, you had your hand raised?
I'm good. I'll wait.
Okay.
Hey, can I say one more thing really quick? When I see our high school students with the science and social studies being the highest struggling areas, one of the things I think about as a literacy specialist is our students' background knowledge. And it's super important that once we learn to decode, while we're teaching kids to decode, we are also growing their background knowledge, because a lot of our students don't have these life experiences that give them the background knowledge. And background knowledge is so important to comprehension. And I could talk more about that. And if you want to geek out on that with me, I'll some other time, but that background knowledge is really important. And that's what I think when I see that data. So anyways.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The Karen Wexel book, The Knowledge Gap, reinforces that, right? And as you see, it's a really great, it's not a great correlation, but it's something that we have to be aware of. Because we're so focused at the elementary level on literacy and math, what's happening is our kids don't have the science background. They don't have the historical background. So concepts and vocabulary, they just aren't strong in them. And then they get to middle school and high school, and there's lots of concepts, there's lots of vocabulary, and we've kind of overcorrected, right? So trying to get better and making sure we're exposing them to more history and more science is definitely a need. Okay, our last presentation, Carly, we saved the best here for last. Oh, Member Roblin.
I just wanted to say, in the follow-up to what Kim had asked for, tracking our little pirates into school and see how they're going, where they come in at. We should also look at Head Start and make sure that we're getting the best out of the Head Start programs and having conversations with them as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right, Carly, the floor is yours.
Okay, I am thrilled to have a few moments of your time to talk about our little pirates. We started with the big pirates, the big teenage pirates, and I get to finish off the night with the little pirates. So my presentation is a little bit different because I don't have the same types of academic data to share, but I do get to share with you some of the amazing things we're doing and what our goals are this year at Little Pirates. Our program serves 72 Little Pirates in 4 classrooms. 54 of our preschool students are preschool promise slots, which means that their families are living at 200% of the poverty level or below. We currently have 30 students on our preschool promise wait list. 18 of our students are district slots. So those are tuition-based slots. Families pay $300 a month for those slots. Our demographics, students must be 3 or 4 years old by September 1st, and 21% of our preschool students are receiving early intervention special education services in collaboration with the ESD. I do want to say I'm really excited. This is the first year that the ESD has come to us and are providing speech services here at Little Pirates. So instead of us having to bus our students over for a short speech session and then have them come back to us, their speech language pathologists are coming here and serving our students at Little Pirates. We do still have some students who go to ESD for longer periods of time to have their individual needs met as well. Okay, this year, our 2 program goals, this kind of gets into the question of, are we seeing this pay off in our schools? Early in my kindergarten teacher career, if you would have asked me what skills do kids need to have in order to be ready for kindergarten, I probably would have told you something like, oh, it would be great if they knew letters and they knew sounds and all the kind of academic skills. And by the time I was ready to leave the classroom, I wanted kids who were ready to learn, who could problem solve, who could recognize their emotions, who could handle disappointment. If they were ready to learn, I could teach them. And so we chose 2 main goals this year at Little Pirates. We are working on social emotional learning, working on identifying emotions, recognizing how they're feeling, and appropriately expressing their emotions. Also working on just basic problem solving in the classroom when things don't go the way we want them to go. In addition, we are working on expressive vocabulary skills, acquiring new language related to daily routines and classroom activities. Kindergarten readiness, preparing our Little Pirates for preschool or for kindergarten, social emotional learning, ready to learn, phonemic awareness. So we use the same phonemic awareness curriculum that our kindergarten classrooms use. So Heggerty, so trying to really build those habits and routines in preschool for our Little Pirates so that transition is smooth to kindergarten. Name writing every day, working on kiddos learning to recognize their name and also having the opportunity to write their name each day. That might look different, or obviously will look different for a kiddo who just turned 3 compared to a kiddo who is 5 and headed off to kindergarten. Working on those basic alphabetic principle concepts, and then also number concepts up to 20. For our attendance, our goal is 90%. One of the things we're doing is really trying to work hard and communicate with families the importance of attendance habits and building those habits with families and helping them to understand just how important it is that their child is regularly attending school. Just like all of the other schools, we saw that dip in February, and we're going to see it in March too with the sickness and illness that was happening in our community. We use an assessment system called TS Gold, and I just selected 4 domains that we report out to families on. And so you'll see that 83% of our Little Pirates are meeting and exceeding in the area of social emotional learning. 92% are meeting and exceeding in the area of physical development. 82% are meeting and exceeding in their language skills, and 85% are meeting and exceeding in their cognitive skills. This is very different than like a black and white assessment of like how many letters and how many sounds that is factored in. But this is really observation checklists that go along with this assessment program and is commonly used in the early learning field. Our future goals for Little Pirates is, of course, we would love to expand Little Pirates and offer more opportunity for children in the Coos Bay community to participate in preschool. We want to continue to provide high quality early learning experiences for children and families, continue to strengthen our collaboration with our partners at the ESD. We are focusing on inclusive practices. We really see ourselves as the intervention. Every interaction that we have here at Little Pirates is an intervention for kiddos before they enter the school system. So what are the ways that we can best prepare them to be successful little humans when they head off to kindergarten? And then another one of our goals is really that family engagement piece, building that positive relationship with families so that they are trusting the school system, so that as they do transition to Eastside and Madison, they've had a really positive experience with us, and they are ready to collaborate with their new school at Eastside and Madison. I went really fast because I feel like it's been a lot of time sitting for everyone. So thank you. And do you have any questions for me?
Member Hutchinson.
Yeah, is the preschool a 1 year, or can it be a 2-year program?
So it's 2 years. It can be 2 years. Yeah, we enroll. You have to be 3 or 4 by September 1st. So for those kiddos who are enrolled at age 3, they once they're enrolled, they're with us unless their family moves or they choose to leave to go to another program. They can have 2 years with us.
Perfect. Thank you.
Member Roblin.
I was just going to say, do they get to play?
Oh yeah, lots of play. That's a big part of our day. So most of our day is play with the support at times of adults, and really trying to engage them in building their vocabulary and asking questions and helping to facilitate peer interactions as appropriate. And we're also doing really developmentally appropriate little small group activities. So a small group activity might last, 5 to 7 minutes with a 3-year-old. And for those kiddos, we have about 40 kiddos that are headed off to kindergarten. This spring, we're going to work to kind of build some stamina in them being able to attend to a small group task for, up to 15 minutes. But our teachers do a really fantastic job of engaging them in activities that are developmentally appropriate, building those skills, transitions, all of those things that they're going to need to be able to do to be successful. And there's so much learning that happens through play at this age. And so, yes, there is lots of opportunity for them to play and interact with their peers and, get upset when someone takes a toy from them and have to learn how to solve that problem without, assaulting someone. So.
And my follow-up, Kim would like to ask if any of you, if you have any need for bunnies. She has a bunch of them. Yeah, she has a bunch of them.
I do have a bunch of bunnies. So, yes, you need a classroom bunny for any of those teachers, Teacher Dylan or any of them.
Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind.
Yes. Are you calling on me, Justin?
Member Brick.
Okay, thanks. I was just gonna say, I piggyback on Arnie's comment earlier about tracking our preschool promise kids, our Head Start kiddos, and our Little Pirates in the district coming into the Coos Bay district. I think that with TS Gold, that's used across the board. So you've got your teaching strategies there. There's some things that we can measure. And have we had any kiddos come over from Head Start to our preschool promise? Do we have that kind of data?
We haven't been sharing. Yes, we have had students. So when we enroll families, the Early Learning Hub enrolls all of the slots in our area. And so we have had some families that have opted to come to Little Pirates from Head Start. We haven't done much data sharing in terms of TS Gold with Head Start. That's a good goal for the future, Kim. I also started trying to play around with Dibbles to to group our kiddos, our little pirates, to try to track them over time. And we do have that started. I just don't feel like we have necessarily enough data yet to kind of show how kiddos are doing, but I will work on that and get that shared out with you all for at least what we currently have.
That'd be great. And is this something we can ask for? When I said earlier, I'd love to see some of that data tracked long term for our pirates coming in, especially, but all early learning comparatively to those who don't have any early learning experience. Hopefully we'll get there to where we're 100%, but it's probably going to take, a little bit every year of, adding a new classroom and having others join in, but I'd love to see that tracked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Carly.
Oh, sorry. We used a survey, and I'm not sure how much we've done this the last couple of years, but I used to survey as a kindergarten teacher how many students had an early learning experience, and it wasn't like in a system, but we would get that information from families so that we could track that as a data point as compared to the kiddos' baseline data coming into kindergarten and then as they progressed. So yeah, that's definitely something we can work on. David?
Thanks, Carly. Hey, I just wondered, I know that part of this, our rationale is to try to get kids in school early, get them up to speed so that we can really set them up for success. But I know as a community, the other real need is to help sort of bridge the gap around childcare. And I just wonder if we feel like, if we have a sense of how much of a difference we're making in that area. I mean, we're not the only schools that are doing this, but do we know if this is really helping families out in terms of giving them another alternative to help solve some of their issues around childcare?
I can't tell you that I have like hard data on that, but my conversations, I could get that information from the Early Learning Hub. They track that pretty closely. But I definitely think it is absolutely helping. A couple of months ago, a pretty large provider in the area closed that was connected with the hospital. And we received a lot of phone calls about families needing a place for their kiddos to go. And we just unfortunately did not have any openings. If we have a kiddo move, we, as you saw, have, 34 kids on the wait list right now, and we'll be getting ready to open up our registration for the 25-26 school year come the beginning of May. And so, yes, I think we are making a dent, but the need is still absolutely there.
And do we know how many of our employees are taking advantage as well?
So our employees go into the lottery system just like the community members. So there isn't like you're an employee and you have a higher level of access to our program. We definitely have employees whose kiddos are participating, but it truly is a lottery system through the Early Learning Hub, and they handle all of the enrollment.
Thanks.
Okay, well, it's a little over 2 hours. I appreciate your guys' time. Great job presenting, really good questions. I guess a couple things I want to wrap up with. One, an area that we didn't get into, and maybe it's in June we talk about it. I think it's going to be really important that we start to disaggregate data and we start to really dive into special populations. And I know some of the elementary people, they had some special populations data, but we need to look at our Native American, our Alaska Native population, our Hispanic population, our mixed groups, and really find out what areas and what groups need more services, need more support and resources. Where are our SPED students and our TAG students, our ELL students? That could be a whole nother data presentation, which we don't have time today for, but that really is something that we have to dive into and figure out where those gaps are in terms of ethnicity and special population. The other thing that I would say is right now in our community, in our culture, we are having the right conversations. I can say unequivocally, with confidence. We are talking about the right things. This group is problem solving. We are creating systems. The arrows are getting pointed. The marbles are on the table. The outcomes will follow, right? First, you got to put the puzzle piece together, and then you just got to keep working it and problem solving and going back to the drawing table. And this didn't work. We come back, and obviously teachers are huge, boots on the ground, and we have a lot of really good teachers, smart teachers that are, and Kara alluded to this, having some early adopters and experts in our district is a real advantage. But we are having the right conversations. We just got to make sure the data gets to the student level. So any concluding comments?
Justin,
Yep.
I'd like to thank you guys. I'm going to admit I've been spending the week with my 96-year-old father, who was a teacher for 40 years. And I was telling him, okay, I'm going to go over to watch a presentation on data. And my dad's like, you sure you don't want to do it here? And I thought, no, Dad, you don't want to do this. Well, I am pleasantly surprised. I was sort of reticent about sitting for 2 hours listening, but this was really helpful. And encapsulating it, I know it was hard for you guys to put it in quick little spurts, but it really helped us, I think, focus in on those areas that you wanted us to focus in on. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Addie. You should have invited Dad.
Yeah.
All right. Member Roblin.
I just want to say that one of the things that Kara said really hit me, and I think is really important, and that is that at her school, the people are in the right places, and I think there's nothing more important all the way through the system than getting people in the right places, and then you can start doing the things that Kayla's done about getting a group of people all feeling the same way about the kids that they're taking care of.
Yeah.
And having a positive interaction with each child every day, because it is those positive interactions that build the confidence they need, and it helps them see the road forward for themselves because other people believe in them. So I was really pleased to hear that.
Yep, relationships matter. Kim, member Brick?
Well, this has been a love-hate relationship for me. I love the data. I love the presentations. It was really hard to absorb it all and keep it all in line with how little time everyone had. Somebody mentioned speed dating. I felt like it was speed dating. I ate this whole thing of vanilla ice cream while we were here, so that was fun. I don't know if you can see that, Blue Bunny. It is the best. But I feel like we needed a little more time. I get the time frame for everyone, but it just didn't feel like it was enough. I asked a lot more questions in the beginning, and then I thought, I've got to lay off the questions because they're not going to have time for everybody to do their presentations. And I felt a little bit jaded for that because I felt like I did have some more questions for folks. But and I always prefer to do things in person. I think that's great, but I appreciate us being able to fit this in, and people can be in their own comfort zones for this. So again, there's parts of it I absolutely loved, and then there was parts of it I'm like, oh, I wish we could dive into that a little bit more, maybe 20 minutes for the presentations or something like that, to look at the times next time we do this, or breaking it up and having half the group and then half the group. I don't know what we do, but it's a lot.
That's good. That's good feedback. We'll definitely do a little feedback tomorrow in our meeting, and yeah, we'll iterate next time, maybe break it up, and for sure. I think we need to start looking at some disaggregated stuff. Any other concluding comments? Okay. Thank you for your guys' time. Principals, we'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, 7:30. Thanks, folks. Have a good evening.